I don't know why I even count down. And welcome back to episode number 53. It is officially May Day, boys.
Let's go.
Raise the Banner podcast. McAtor here with Benny Ballgame and Zach Brewitt. Boys, how we doing today?
Doing well.
Doing great.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you got anything to say, Ben? It's a nice
to,
long pause.
Hold on, I'm trying to cue something up here.
All right. Well, let's just jump right into it, boys. It's May Day. Today was a good day to be a Patriots fan. Robert Saleh got his ass canned in New York, although that might not be a good thing for Patriots fans because he sucks, and the Jets would have just continued to suck under him. But he got his ass canned.
You ready? I got it.
What?
It's gonna be May. It's gonna be May.
Sorry, had to.
You know, on like Section 10 when they suspend the person, I'm suspending you for 30 seconds.
Get him booted.
No. All right,
that was a quick 30 seconds.
I'll give you the extra 30 seconds.
No,
if you
I'd
want.
rather not. I'd rather you don't.
All right, Drake May, boys. He's here. The time is now. After what we all would have expected to be last week or next week, and not this week being his debut.
the one of the weeks we didn't pick.
Yeah. Gerard Mayo's keeping us on our toes, and he has leaked to the media, I guess, that Drake May will be the Patriots starter going forward, or seemingly going forward. How we feeling? Good? Excited?
Good.
Thrilled?
Terrified.
A little bit of everything?
All the above. Yeah, really.
Vidarian Lowe is going to forget to block, and Drake May is going to have his helmet knocked off. That's what I'm afraid of.
That could. Hey, Vidarian Lowe had a phenomenal game this past weekend. So, if he can continue that, the knock on the fake wood that is my desk right now.
At least Drake May, if he gets some pressure, will be able to move around in the pocket.
Yeah, it'll be nice to see somebody who can move more than 6 inches one way or the other and try to avoid a massive man trying to land on him.
Like Bledsoe 2.0 back there, but
yeah. So
black.
Gerard Mayo, the slowest black quarterback in the NFL.
Yep.
No, he's starting.
That's why I said black quarterback.
Obviously, there's a lot of discussion about the decision process in all this. Obviously, we saw the Patriots lose pretty embarrassingly to Miami. It was a game that, in all intents and purposes, was just kind of there for them to take, and they didn't do it. They did the opposite. They gave the game away, and then they tried to take it back, and Jalen Polk could only somewhat get his foot in, but not totally get his foot in. But he got his toe in, but not his heel. But then that doesn't matter sometimes, but it matters then. They could have won. My first question, and Ben, it's to you. You brought it up to me, I guess, before this, so
I did.
Fits. If Jalen Polk gets his foot in, does Drake May start this week?
Absolutely not. No, I think this whole move felt more reactionary than anything. Was talking to a buddy of mine, and this kind of gets another layer of depth from what we talked about a couple hours ago. I think, as we all know, there's pressure on NFL GMs and owners to play young stars, supposedly stars that are high draft picks. There's a lot of pressure there. That's why you see a lot of high drafted quarterbacks play right away, oftentimes to their detriment. So I think that, the added pressure of Brissett just isn't cutting it has been worse than I thought we think he was going to be. A lot of words there. Not sure if that was a coherent sentence, but we're rolling with it. We kind of went into the season thinking, okay, we know what Jacoby Brissett is. There's not a ton of upside, but there's a solid floor. And I think that the floor is definitely a lot lower now than I think, anticipated. I know you would, Matt, early in the year had thought the quarterbacks could throw collectively, because we were all in an agreement that both Brissett and Maye would play at some point this season, that you thought collectively 4,000 yards was a number that was attainable. And Brissett is well below, hit with a per game average, is well below that 4,000 yard mark. So
I don't know if he'll hit 2,000.
I'd have to crunch the numbers, but yeah, it's probably half that. Considering for 4,000 yard season, you have to throw like 225, 230 yards a game average to get to 4,000, I think is the number. And he's probably half that. But anyway, so I think it is more reactionary. I think, yeah, if Polk gets the foot down, you're talking about how Brissett, showed toughness and adversity and leads the game-winning drive, and the Patriots are sitting here at 2-3, and they're feeling better about themselves because, they climb out of the basement of the AFC East. They're only a game out of the division. Like that would have been the narrative yesterday, today, for the rest of it. And then still talking about, okay, yeah, they won, but if Brissett continues to play this way, it's not sustainable. They're going to have to turn the reins over eventually. I think the loss, how they lost, certainly points them in the direction of making the change. Again, I did feel it was reactionary. I mean, who really knows how many more weeks they were planning on sitting Drake Maye, and at this point, like, how much more of a difference does that really make? We've addressed that topic before. But yeah, I would say, it's more reactionary, and I think that with the pressure of the fact that the young quarterbacks have been playing well for the most part, save for like Bo Nix, because he's flashed a little bit, but he hasn't really played that great. Maybe there's undue pressure that because Caleb Williams is playing pretty decent and because Jaden Daniels is playing pretty decent, that there's this undue pressure within to be like, hey, like, we drafted this guy number 3 overall. The top 2 quarterbacks ahead of him are playing pretty well. Like, we could be in that same situation as them if we play Drake Maye.
Fair enough. Zach, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, look, the decision to move on from Brissett was always going to be reactionary, barring injury. Like, you weren't going to bench him if they were playing well. Right. So it's always going to be reactionary, but I think it happened a bit sooner than maybe we all thought. I think I said week 12, Ben, you had said week 14. It's on some podcast. So, like, I think it happened a little bit before. But yeah, I agree. I think seeing how Jaden Daniels and Caleb Williams have been performing, Bo Nix had a good game last week, or I guess on Sunday, but wouldn't say his season's going well, but he's getting better. Like, there's always going to be growing pains, but I think the floor with Brissett is worse than even I thought. Like, I thought it was going to be at least serviceable, and it's not. Like, it's not sustainable. Yes, the O-line is atrocious, but like, Maye can figure that out. The Commanders, almost said Redskins, the Commanders have a terrible O-line too, and Jaden Daniels is looking really, really good. He talks to the MVP candidate at some point before last week. So yeah, I think like it happened sooner than we all thought. I think it had to happen. I'm all for the move. I think we were teetering on a third straight season of just an abysmal, can't move the football offense. This gives us hope. I don't know that's going to happen right away. Houston's a good team, but I think it had to happen. I'm excited it was going to happen, or that it did happen. And yeah, I think it's going to take some time for it to kind of show itself. But the overall is much better than what we've seen before.
Yeah, I mean, that's like you said. We kind of knew it was coming after the Miami game. We knew that it was going to be happening sooner rather than later. Simply just how based off how things have been going. In terms of it's happening this week, fans are, I think, overreacting to this concept of, don't get me wrong. He should have started last week if they were going to be willing to play him this week. That being said, like, I think people overreacting to this whole, they're starting him against a great defense type of thing for 2 reasons. One, if he started last week, like, does your second versus first start make that big of a difference if you're facing Houston in your second start versus your first start? Like, I don't really see it as like some monumental difference for the quarterback. And then most importantly, if you're gonna if playing Houston in your first start as a quarterback, like breaks you as a quarterback, you were probably not going to be good anyways. So
Yeah.
this whole idea that like, oh my god, like they're asking to have him killed, like you're gonna ruin him, blah 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 blah. Like again, if Houston has a good defense, Houston's not some like godly historic defense. They have a good defense. They have a good pass rush. Yes. If Drake May breaks and fails as a rookie QB in his development because they played Houston week 1, he was never going to be good in the first place. So that argument, like, again, I agree. Ideally, you play him against like a soft team. Miami last week would have been a good spot. Jacksonville next week, as much as it's across the pond, would have been a good spot. But I just don't really buy into this. Oh my god, like it's such a big deal that he's starting to versus Houston. You put him out there. The O-line was not horrid this past weekend.
I like that's how we're at. We're like, oh yeah, it wasn't leaking like a sieve. So I guess that's an improvement.
Yeah, there was like a slow leak, and it's coming from a different spot. It's coming from right up the middle now. But you know that coming up the middle is a little easier for quarterbacks.
Yeah.
There's a joke in there somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. Brady was one of the people to say that is, pressure coming up the middle is easier to withstand than pressure coming from the sides. Did he say that, or did he say the opposite? I think it was from up the middle, because up the middle he can move, he can see it and move left to right. You can easily withstand coming from your blind side and stuff like that. Like it's obviously a lot more difficult, but in terms of May, like I'm excited. I felt like he could start week 1. I was willing to start him week 1. I would like to assume that he feels more comfortable now than he would have week 1. Just in terms of the playbook development and all that. And maybe, I heard was it Brer, I think, talk about his improvement in blitz pickup. That's the one thing that he had heard. So I'm excited to see him play. This is going to be the most excited I have been to see a Patriots game. And, oh, freaking God. Like, I don't know.
Maybe a quarterback debut.
Maybe Mac Jones's debut.
Yeah.
Like, that was probably the last time I was, like, genuinely excited to watch a Patriots game.
Yeah.
And that's sad. It's a little upsetting to myself as I say it out loud right now, but that's
4 years ago.
That's kind of where we've been at.
Yeah. I mean, if you believe Evan Lazar mutiny story that he's saying now is overblown, but he's saying that like the players in locker room are saying to put in Drake May. That has to tell you something. Yeah, either they're telling you that Brissett is not good, which obviously we can see that with our own eyes, but they're on the front lines. They see it in practice, and and if they think that he showed in practice is better than
Lazar. I mean, Evan Lazar he probably wasn't lying. Like when or he might have been fabricating a little bit, but like the team and the players definitely think Drake May is better. Yeah. They watch these guys play every day in practice. Like,
it'd be worse than Brissett.
I'm not some football expert, but I could go watch 2 guys practice for a day, and I could probably tell you who is better if you just blind test me and I don't know who the players are.
Yeah.
Like, so these players played football their whole lives. They know that Drake May is probably the better option right now. And so when they're getting their ass kicked versus Seattle, and then again their ass kicked again versus the Jets, and then again versus San Francisco, and then they lose a very attainable game against Miami. They're coming into the locker room, and they may not be saying it publicly, but they're frustrated because they know there's a better quarterback sitting on the sideline. Yeah. So we're going to get a rejuvenated team, I think, this weekend too. As much as Houston is a good football team, I don't expect the Patriots to necessarily win the game. I think the offense will be full tilt. I think we'll finally, granted, he's played a little bit better lately, but we're finally going to see what Douglas can be.
Mhm.
And, you know, AVP, this is his last kind of opportunity.
This
I
is when
think
you're brought in.
that's what pretty strong to say, like 5 weeks into the season type of thing. But like, I felt like we weren't really giving AVP a fair opportunity in kind of evaluating him, because like you're literally giving him a bunch of like shit and saying like go make a dinner with it. Like he has a bunch of dog shit, go make dinner. At least now he has a main entree, an idea. I don't know how to
This is what
describe
he was
May.
brought in
I
to
don't know where you're
do.
going
Right?
with
He
this.
wasn't brought in to be a bridge with Brissett. He was brought in
Yeah.
to coach May. So
Yeah. So we'll see. The problem with AVP is if May comes out and we go another 5-6 weeks where he looks terrible and the offense looks stagnant and like looks boring and uncreative and all that, he could quickly find himself out the door.
yeah,
And so it's definitely a big switch for him. I wonder, do you guys think that he feels the pressure and he's kind of changes tone within the locker room to kind of say, because I know, Ben, you've always felt like he wants to sit May all year. Do you think that has kind of changed with the pressure of kind of looking at his job and him maybe being on his hot seat?
You talking about Van Pelt?
Yeah, I mean, he came from the Green Bay.
I don't know how much influence he has on that decision. I think if we believe now what we believed in the offseason is that this particular, the direction of the quarterback's development is coming from the front office and not from Gerard Mayo, then I think it's more of Elliot Wolf feeling the pressure and being like, well, Jacoby's not getting it done. We thought he'd be better than this. He was supposed to know Alex Van Pelt's system. I don't know how that is coming from.
I don't
Alex
think AVP had a big say, like final say in it, but I'm not saying like he obviously has an opinion on it. Sure. I personally think that his opinion, and by opinion I mean it's been influenced in outside ways, to him saying, okay, I think we need to start him now because my own job looks like it might start to be in jeopardy. I need more talent and opportunity in that for him.
It's hard to say. There was a report out last week, and this is kind of where all the contradiction came from about like when it kind of furthered the conversation about when Drake May was going to play. It came out from Bedard talking. He was talking about his sources. This was the end of last week, I think, saying how his sources around the team, and he said he was being intentionally vague with how he was going to describe it, was that his sources were saying that Drake May is still a ways away because he's quote unquote figuring things out related to the offense, and that they didn't think he was really close to starting. And that if Drake May needed to start, that they would need to simplify the offense, but they could make it work. So if you give credence to that,
how can you simplify the offense that they have already? It's
know.
already incredibly simple.
Right. And I think that it was more so like shrink the playbook. I think the simplification of the offense becomes less plays available because according to Bedard's sources, Drake May can't do certain, I don't know if he just can't execute certain plays, doesn't know certain plays in the playbook, so they have to remove them all together. I don't know if I fully believe it.
I think that's kind of bullshit.
I mean, Bedard's as connected to the team as anybody, but whatever. The thing about AVP, I think, I don't want to say he's got a little bit of egg on his face, but you kind of brought him in and Brissett at the same time because of their familiarity with each other, that this was somehow a match that was going to let them prolong the developmental process of Drake May, because Brissett was familiar with Alex Van Pelt's offensive system. Van Pelt was familiar with how Brissett, reads defenses, his likes and dislikes when it comes to certain plays and how they're going to execute them. And so I think I think big picture for Van Pelt, it makes more sense to play the guys because it makes him look better if the offense does better things. I mean, so we'll see. I mean, I haven't loved his play calling. I think that there are certain plays he probably can't call because Brissett can't do some of the things that Drake May can. You know, obviously the arm talent's not as good. He's not as mobile in the pocket, out of the pocket. So I guess we'll kind of see what happens. I don't think, I mean, outside their pass rush, I don't think Houston runs some sort of super complex defensive scheme that can't be deciphered. The tricky part is going to be whether or not they can keep May upright, because that's probably one of our big key matchups. Is the Pats have the worst pass protection grade in the league, and the Texans have the best pass rushing grade in the NFL. So it's tough. I don't know. I mean, obviously, when you're the offensive coordinator and you can't run certain plays because you have somebody with limited upside and limited mobility that Brissett does. I don't know how much of the conversation is him in there being like, hey, like my job's on the line. I need you to give me the other quarterback.
Yeah, I don't think he's actively saying that. And before I kind of forget it, the talk about like having to simplify the playbook, and maybe there's some plays, but I also think that inputting Drake May into the lineup opens up other plays. Like you can run a lot more RPOs with Drake May. You can have design QB, rollouts or even runs with Drake May. I think so. As much as like maybe there are certain plays that he doesn't get. And it's why I don't really kind of buy it. It doesn't really make a lot of sense to me.
Well, I think also part of it too, and because part of their developmental plan has been Drake May gets 30% of the first team reps during practice. And maybe there's issues there with Brissett, but I don't know. But I think that if you're only getting 30% of the first team reps, probably fair to say there's certain things that you're not doing week to week in terms of deep dives into a playbook. And maybe that's playing a hand in it because he hasn't been getting the same, obviously he's not getting the same first team reps because he's not the starter, but I wonder how much that plays a factor into his like playbook development and ability. Like, I'm not saying that he doesn't know certain plays, but I wonder if, because of that, I wonder if that's partly why Bedard's like, my sources say that Drake May needs to have a simplified playbook. And maybe that's just kind of a broad statement because any backup quarterback that's a rookie probably can't go in deep into the playbook and throw random things at him because
probably to an extent
6 of his rookie season.
Yeah, I think Bedard's comments can kind of be misinterpreted. Like I agree with the concept that rookies, the more you play, the longer you play, the more experience you get. Like you can start opening things up and being a little bit more complex in how you call plays and B the plays you call. But in a general sense, within the playbook, if at this point May is struggling to like physically remember plays, call plays, remember plays, like would be more of a worry.
Yeah,
like, that's an actual worry. So I don't know which it is. So it's tough to kind of speculate what Bedard is really saying. But in terms of Drake May's being ability to kind of move in their play, I would imagine that they were throwing a lot at him when he was getting that 30% of snaps. There's no way like each week they're just giving him the same 5 to 7 plays and saying like, here, run these 5 to 7 plays. They're definitely probably trying to throw a lot at him in that 30%. And then it's just a matter of him. I think the bigger obstacle for him is identifying what the defense is doing, identifying what's coming at him. And so that's when we heard Brio said that he has potentially taken strides over the last couple weeks. Is if, he should know the playbook, but if he can't recognize, that Houston's blitzing 6 guys, or if that the corner is creeping in to do a corner blitz and you're going to get blindsided because you didn't pick that up. That's right. The bigger issue. That being said, on multiple occasions over the first 5 weeks, that was an issue with Brissett. So, I think we came on here last week and we talked about a play. I think it was the Seattle week where everybody and their grandmother, even watching the game on TV, could have told you that Seattle was going to blitz. And Brissett didn't check out of the play. He runs a play action. By the time he turns around, he gets decked. Like turns around for the play action. And so it's like, all right, if you can't do those things as a veteran quarterback, what are you giving to us as a team? And I think that's kind of what possibly led to the decision, obviously.
Yeah.
But I don't think we're going to see a big difference in terms of drop off. The biggest difference I think you'll see, and this is why I'm a little worried that Andrews is not there, is pre-snap play calling. A lot of times you can generally give the quarterback 2 or 3 plays and say, hey, go make a decision at the line. And I don't know if you're going to see that with Maye, up front. It will be more simplified in that sense of, hey, we're going to just run this play and run.
I mean, he, if I remember correctly, didn't he have situations in the preseason where he was making audibles and line protection changes at the line during the preseason? We did see that, didn't we?
Yeah, and again, that's why I felt that was one of the things that I felt that he was ready. I felt like he showed a good command pre-snap, and obviously, I'm not saying he was some Tom Brady professional in the preseason, but I think we saw enough in that level, in that category of what we're looking for in his development to say, hey, he was ready to go. So it's tough to kind of project what he improved on over the last 5 weeks, but I'm sure that Mayo and Covington were certainly trying to throw him all different looks in practice, and I'm sure AVP was trying to throw him all different type of situations in practice. So it doesn't matter until you do it in the game, but the last 5 weeks of practice could certainly have helped him feel more comfortable in identifying what the defense is going to throw at you, and then calling the plays in the huddle and making changes at the line of scrimmage.
I would agree.
You don't have to be exceptionally better than Brissett is right now. You just have to be a little bit better than Brissett is right now, and it's not hard to do.
No, I was going to say it's not hard to be even a little
hard
bit
to be anything better.
Hey, this is the New England Patriots where the bar is set so low. It's be better than Jacoby Brissett and not look horrible as an O-line.
Become our starting quarterback. But what I mean is
might as well say don't look worse than McAtor.
Yeah.
Hey.
I mean,
what did I do?
No. You're just not a professional quarterback.
Everyone brought in Brissett because he was supposed to teach Drake Maye and bring him along, and kind of when the team felt ready to hand the keys over, or whatever that looks like, it was time. If Brissett is this bad and Brissett is the one teaching your future quarterback, then you got to pull the plug and let the kid go, because Brissett can't be teaching you anything spectacular with what you're seeing. And there was a picture, and again, it's a picture, so do with that what you will. But it was of the two of them sitting on the bench. I think it was in San Francisco. And they weren't even looking at each other. They weren't really usually you see Brady head down with McDaniels back in the day, or Bill O'Brien or whatever the case, and they weren't even looking at each other. So I don't know if that's normal or just a bad picture, whatever the case. But I can't imagine that Drake Maye is getting a whole lot of.
I think Brissett can help him, help him in the mental parts of the game. The problem with Brissett is he's just not actually good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I do think that Brissett can still be helping him learn. There are some quarterbacks in this league that can't read a defense for their life, but they're uber athletic and have a great arm, and they're a freak of an athlete, and so they can perform on the field. I'll cough and point to the guy leading the Pittsburgh Steelers right now.
That's a valid point.
Yeah, and then there are guys that
read a defense.
Yeah, then there are guys that get it. They can read a defense. They can run a huddle. They can run an offense. They can do it really well, and they are just limited as an actual player. Sometimes you will get game managers like on the high level of like Alex Smith, where like he wasn't this uber talented physically guy, but the dude just got it mentally. Or you could get guys like Brian Hoyer as an example. Very smart guy, very smart quarterback, but like just physically didn't have the talents to be an NFL quarterback. He wasn't accurate enough. He wasn't big enough, strong enough, fast enough. He was just an overall mediocre physical talent.
The issue is Brissett either one of those, though?
Well, that's the problem with Brissett. Brissett is a smart quarterback.
Yeah.
I think overall, though, he's just not actually good at the position.
I agree with that, but I'm saying that because we just got done talking about how he's unable to read a defense, and now he's the one supposed to be teaching our team. You know what I mean?
I think overall he's smart. He has made some mistakes that are a little uncharacteristic, but yes, I agree with kind of what like the point you're trying to make.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Zach.
No, I was gonna say like before this season, I would have said, you know, he is that Brian Hoyer, Alex Smith type. This season, it's taken a complete step back. So I don't know what the issue is. I do agree that he is definitely trending more towards that second option.
The problem is he can't elevate talent.
No.
So you know, when you have a shit O-line and mediocre weapons, and you ask this guy to go out and perform, he's gonna look bad. If you put Jacoby Brissett in San Francisco tomorrow, you know, I'm not saying he's going to look like Brock Purdy or like some star, but Jacoby Brissett would look a lot better than what he does in New England.
Yeah.
That's just kind of the reality of the situation for Brissett. What I underestimated was
everything.
I don't know. I should have anticipated that how bad the O-line, that I knew it wasn't going to be good, but how much it would affect the fact that Brissett is a mediocre quarterback.
Yeah.
And he needs that desperately to be a mediocre starting quarterback. Yes. You know what I mean? So if you're a mediocre quarterback and you have a shit O-line, you're going to be worse than a mediocre quarterback, because the mediocre quarterback is if things are average around you. What are you going to be?
Right.
And he's been dog shit because everything around him is dog shit. So Drake May's got a lot more talent, especially physically. So if he's there mentally, which we don't know, things could look notably better, even if
I think at some point let him play backyard football and stop trying to confuse the kid, or I hope they do at least to start. You can obviously get the best of both worlds, but at first,
that's what we talked about. Is he came from a North Carolina situation where like he played around chaos. And I know I've said that a few different times, and Ben's kind of downplayed it with me every time I say it, but like him playing in chaos certainly, you know, gets you ready for that type of situation. And again, not that you want to be putting him in that situation, but here we are. And so I think he's a lot more capable of withstanding that type of shit than if we had like someone coming like Mac Jones did, where he came where it was a perfect situation in Alabama. So again, like, is it ideal? No. Do you ideally want him to play against Houston? No. But like it's time to put him out there and see what the kid can do. You could have a very limited play sheet for him, and I still think it leaves more opportunity for the team to score than it did under Jacoby Brissett.
I agree. Yeah. And to go back to the teaching component, you know, I would say I certainly hope that it's Jacoby Brissett knows how to read the defense, but his progressions are an issue, and that his ability to make a decision is being hampered more so by a lack of talent by the guys who are running routes and getting open, more so. Like, obviously that's what you hope for, right? You hope that, you know, they can look at a play sheet and go, okay, I'm looking at, you know, a single high safety with press coverage on the outside. That tells me they're in man, versus, you know, a Tampa 2 defense with softer perimeter coverage tells you they're in zone. Like, hopefully he can be like, he can look at something and go, okay, this is what you're looking at. You know, if this guy does this, it's a blitz. If this guy moves over here, you know he's going to be doing X. And you hope it's more that than not him looking at a sheet and going, oh yeah, like if it's this, it's a blitz, and they're in like hopefully it's his ability to read the defense and just he hasn't been able to execute going through progressions and finding an open receiver and pulling the trigger more so than the opposite where he wants to pull the trigger but he doesn't know. He's like, okay, like this guy's gonna run a post, but I don't know if the safety's gonna cover the post or crash. Like that's what you hope for.
Yeah, well, so for Brissett, there's obviously so many elements to go into this. I do think you're correct that Brissett's progressions haven't been that fluid this year. But again, obviously a lot goes into that. It's your trust in your O-line, how you're feeling inside the pocket. Are the receivers getting open? How much do you trust the receivers? And most importantly, how much do you believe in your ability to make the throw? And that's part of what Jacoby Brissett, I think, has had issues with, is like he can, he's had some progressions where I think he's hesitated and not made the throw because he's worried about turning the ball over. He's only got one turnover. So for a quarterback that has sucked as bad as he is, he only has one turnover, which is it makes the fact that they're one.
Not true.
I think he only has one pick.
But he fumbled 3 times last weekend.
Okay, excuse me. One.
Oh, I was gonna say, I was like, he's definitely turned the ball over more than one time.
Me. One pat, like he's only got one.
Yeah, I think he only has the one interception.
So, I think he's been a little bit hesitant inside the pocket, and the fact that like he's got a little bit of a big wind up in his throw. He doesn't get rid of the ball super quickly. He doesn't have he has a solid arm, but not like something that's overly strong. And then he can't make certain throws like off platform and while on the move and stuff like that Drake Maye can. So I think you'll see Drake Maye being able to just come in and just take more chances. And that might result in more picks. And I expect it to result in more picks. But it also could end up resulting in a lot more big plays and opportunities for the offense, to say the least.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree with that.
How are you guys feeling? How are you guys feeling about? I know I talked about this a little bit last week. How are you guys feeling about the defense after facing Miami? I had a conversation with the guy I called the defense just fine, and they're like, oh, they're ranked in the bottom of the league through 4 games, and they were like 10th in last year. I'm like, well, they played 4 good offenses. They're gonna be in the bottom of the league, and he was bitching and bitching and bitching. I went back, and against basically all the good teams, they allowed about 28 points per game, and against the shit bum quarterbacks like Zach Wilson and Kenny Pickett and those guys, they averaged like 15 points per game. And what do you know? They face a bum defense and bum offense this week in Miami with Tyler Huntley, and they only allow 15 points. Are you guys comfortable with the team? How, like the defense as a whole? Where are you guys on that?
It's kind of what I describe it as is just fine. Like, there's never a time where third and got to have it. I think they're going to make a stop, but I also don't expect them to give up big play after big play. Except for I think the only game I was really noticed how bad they were was the Jets game when Aaron Rodgers picked him apart, but he's Aaron Rodgers and that's what he does. I've never, but you also expected it too when you lose Barmore for your entire season and then you give up Judon. So yeah, they're just fine. Nothing's going to be overly impressive, and now you're probably going to lose Jabril Peppers for the rest of the year. So
that's a fast car.
Just I'm on the highway somewhere else, so you'll get that a lot. I know you guys could hear that from this side, but so I think it's just fine. I've never been wowed by them, and now it's probably gonna get worse if we do lose Peppers for the rest of the year.
Ben,
sorry, I was doing math.
That's your math look.
I was counting. So I was looking at the team defensive numbers. So they are 14th in the NFL against the run, 590 yards allowed through 5 games. They are in the bottom 10 in passing yards allowed. So my take on the defense is this. It's like it's been a quintessential like bend but don't break. Like, yeah, they haven't given up a ton of points, but they don't create resistance against anybody. Geno Smith had his way with this defense. Aaron Rodgers had his way with the defense. Like, I get that they played Tyler Huntley, not super great, but they couldn't stop Raheem Mostert or Jalen Wright to save their life yesterday, or 2 days ago. So I think, I mean, I'd grade them at like a C minus, like over, like, yeah, they're not giving up a ton of points, but they're not exactly like if teams want to do things against the Patriots, they're getting whatever they want. And so my thing is that when you start to play like this upcoming weekend, they're playing CJ Stroud and Houston. Like, I would be surprised if he doesn't complete like 70%+ of his passes and gets whatever he wants whenever he wants to get it, because that's been their MO against better offenses.
So
like
hopefully Nico Collins is out this week. If you're a Patriots defense.
And so, but like Geno Smith and Aaron Rodgers were both over 75% completion percentage against this Patriots defense. Again, in those games, they gave up 23 points. Was it 24? 24 to the Jets, 23 to the Seahawks, which is, I would say, over like a lengthy period of time, like 23 to 24 points a game is probably somewhere in the middle of the pack in terms of points per game allowed as far as the defense goes. However, in terms of yards allowed, like, it doesn't look good. Like, again, they gave up what was like 190 yards rushing to the Dolphins. Like, Raheem Mostert and Jalen Wright are not world-beating talents. And I know like A-Chain only had 18 yards, but he had 18 yards on 3 carries before getting hurt. So like, it's been hit or miss. Like, the Jets didn't really run, like, they didn't wow me running the ball a couple weeks ago, but again, Aaron Rodgers got whatever he wanted. So it's like, they're fine, but I think that because they're not giving up as many points as you would expect them to, given how many yards they've given up, it looks a little better than I think it is. It's not.
This is what we saw under Patricia a little bit.
Like, they're definitely worse than they were last year, but like, they don't have Barmore, they don't have Bentley in the middle, and they're missing Judon, who, albeit he was hurt last year, and the 2 years prior before that, he kind of disappeared second half. Like, he came out like gangbusters in early 21 and early 2022 and was roaring through offensive lines. But like, they're missing key components that they've had for the last couple of years. So it's expected for a little bit of a regression.
Especially against the run. Obviously, you having Barmore up the middle.
Right.
You know, it could be a little bit different. But no, I mean, I agree. It's the magical world of X, Twitter, what do you want to call it? When you say, oh, they've been just fine, that to people interpret that as me saying they've been great. and they respond as if I said they've been the best defense in football, and like, how dare I say that? No, I mean, there haven't been like spectacular, but again, considering the situation, who you lost, you kind of mentioned like what the Patricia defenses used to be. The Patriots used to give up a ton of yards. They would be in the top 10 of most yards given up, but they would be in the bottom 10 of points given up. It was the bend don't break. You know, you give them up, they get them into the red zone, but you keep them to 3 instead of 7. And that is usually, you know, if you can be a good red zone defense, you could suck balls between the 20s. If you're a good red zone defense, your defense as a whole will be at least decent, like at least solid.
Yeah.
So we'll see how things play out. Obviously, they played 4 good offenses in the first 4 weeks. Not that Geno Smith is some world beater, but like, you know, Ken Walker's a good running back.
DK Metcalf, good wide receiver.
Yeah.
So real
JSN,
quick,
good. Lockett, good.
Yeah, and just to go back to the Pats defensive stats, so they have the 10th best points per game allowed. Now, granted, handful of teams had bye weeks, so some teams have played 5, some teams haven't. But the Patriots currently ranked 10th in the NFL, giving up 20.4 points per game. They are the 10th worst defense in terms of yardage,
Okay,
which
so it's
is
exactly what I said.
which is 20, so like 20, what's that, 23rd? I don't know,
20
whatever it is.
22nd or whatever it is.
They give up 357 yards per game defensively, the worst of which is passing. They are, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They're the 8th worst team against the pass, but they rank like 12th against the run. And there's a pretty wide disparity. Like the Ravens only give up 60 yards rushing on the ground. They're the number 1 rush defense in the NFL. And the Patriots are middle of the pack at 120 a game. So like there's a big gap between 1 and 16 or whatever number they are.
Well, what's 2?
67. Minnesota,
What's 5?
67. 1, 2, 3, 4. Pittsburgh Steelers, 90.
So it kind of goes up a little quick, but not super quick.
Yeah. Like Kansas City has the 3rd ranked rush defense at 88 yards. Like they give up almost 30 more rushing yards a game, and they're 3rd in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it, obviously, there's so many other factors to this, too. Like, for example, the Miami game, like the Patriots defense was out on the field a ton. The Patriots offense definitely lost the time of possession. I don't have it in front of me. So that's obviously another factor into all this is like, if you have a bad offense, it naturally is going to make things tougher for the defense because you're out there more.
Correct.
The other team gets more opportunity. As a whole, I think the defense has been fine. I think that's the best way to put it. They haven't been spectacular. We'll see how things kind of develop under the Covington, leadership there. I think Christian Gonzalez looks phenomenal. He looks really good. I don't like for the Patriots. You don't want to see Nico Collins playing because obviously it helps you, but in terms of a matchup, boy, would I love to see that matchup this weekend and see how Gonzalez plays up against Collins. But no, I think that they've been fine, and I think people are kind of overreacting to that situation where, again, like they played 4 good offenses the first 4 weeks, and they weren't great, but they weren't horrible. And then they played a mediocre offense, and they let up 15 points in a game where your offense scored, what was it, 9, 10? Yeah, 10.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of a wait and see, but what we'll probably see by the end of the year is a very similar situation where, okay, you played the top offenses and you let up 26, 27 points a game. You played the bad offenses and you let up 15 points a game. And altogether, it's going to come around. And what do you say, Ben? We're at 20 point something?
Yeah, 20.4. So the teams we've played so far, Miami averages 12 points a game. The Jets average 18. The Seahawks average 24. The 49ers average 25. And the Bengals average 28.
Where's 25 rank in points per game for an offense?
12th.
12.
Either way, we're pretty much right at whatever they're giving up, except for Cincinnati. But Cincinnati had
and Cincinnati's the worst. I mean, I would say like if you're gonna say like where do they rank, I would say somewhere between middle of the pack to slightly below middle of the pack. I would say it's my overall assessment on the Patriots defense.
They're probably in like the 12 to 18 range. Like they're a middle of the pack defense, and you can talk about like, that's worse than last year. Yes, that is moderately worse than last year. They had a top 10 defense last year, give or take. But you're quite literally missing your captain of the defense. You're also missing your best defensive player in Christian Barmore. So naturally, things are going to look a little bit worse. And then on top of that, if Drake Maye can come out and have more command of the offense, score more points, the defense will naturally look better. Like, you know what I mean? Like when you're playing from behind, it's the worst. Like offenses against you can have an open playbook of how they need to approach, how they can approach you. If you're playing with the lead, you're up 20-10 in the third quarter. Like, the offenses aren't going to just be dinking around. you know that they're going to have to be more aggressive. You can have more a better idea of what they're going to be doing against you. If you're down 10 in the mid third quarter, like you kind of that maybe not taking a ton of shots, but they can kind of roll out whatever the hell they want at you. And so yeah, I mean I'm okay with the defense. We'll see how things play out. They got what? They got a good offense in Houston this week. They face what is a okay offense in Jacksonville. I don't know. I don't even know what to judge Jacksonville right now.
I'm not a big
Well, let's
Lawrence
see.
guy, so
Then they got what? Rodgers.
So Houston and Jacksonville have essentially the same offense.
oh,
Houston scoring 20 points a game, Jacksonville scoring 19. And then in turn, the big difference I think is going to be yards per game. Houston is 6th in offense. Jacksonville is, where are they?
Where's Houston in rushing yards per game? Because if they're without Mixon again this week,
they're just outside the middle of the pack. They average 104 yards a game, which is
17th, 18th.
Where are they?
Come on, get better at counting.
Right there. 1, 2. Oh, wait a minute. I was looking at the wrong team. Oh, I was looking at Houston. I'm sorry. I was looking for Jacksonville. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 10th worst in rushing yards. Jacksonville's because pay 1, 2, 3.
Tank Bigsby looks freaking good in Jacksonville. I'll tell you
so
that.
we're 8th, and Jacksonville's 11th in rushing yards per game. So Jacksonville has a better rush offense. Houston has a better pass offense, they score roughly the same number of points per game.
The Patriots need to go into Houston, especially if Joe Mixon is not there, and say like, you can run the ball. Like you can run the ball. We're gonna basically entice you into running the ball. We're not gonna let you pass the ball, type of thing.
Yeah.
Obviously Houston, you're not gonna shut down CJ Stroud and Nico Collins and Stephon Diggs and Tank Dell.
Dell's dinged up too.
Yeah. And so, you're not gonna shut them
I think
down.
that has to be the game plan. Like against Houston, you have to, like you just said, you have to force them to run the ball because our biggest weakness. Now, granted, the numbers are skewed. Like just to put it in perspective, the Patriots have the 9th worst pass defense in the NFL, and we're giving up 239 yards a game passing, and that's 9th worst in the NFL.
Yeah. No, obviously, if Nico's out, it changes. It maybe changes the approach a little bit because then you could put Gonzo on Diggs, and that's just overall a big difference than leaving like John Jones or Marco Wilson on Stephon Diggs. But you gotta entice them and do the opposite of kind of loading the box. Play a lot of safeties. Play a very safe approach towards them. You can blitz a little bit, but in terms of linebacker wise, play a little bit safe, entice them to run the ball. And if you want a chance to win and beat Houston, it comes down to that. You need to slow the game down, make them have long drives instead of big plays, because you're not going to outscore them. And you need to hope that they you could, if you want a chance to win this game, it needs to be like a 21 to 20 game.
Yeah.
Or,
the Patriots offense would need to score in the low to mid 20s to give themselves a shot. Because you would expect, even with Nico Collins, because he hasn't missed any time outside of missing the end of Sunday's game, you would expect the Houston Texans to put up somewhere around 21 points.
Yeah, and surprisingly, like their points per game isn't incredibly high this year. And I think it's part because Mixon has been out a little bit. Their run game hasn't been that great. So if you can force them to run it, and you can let them have a good running day, if Houston's having a good running day on you and you're in the offense is having a mediocre passing day, that's good. Like that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
the Texans have only scored more than 24 points this year once, and in 2 games were held under 20. So week 1 they won 29, week 2 19, week 3 7, and then back-to-back weeks 24 and 23.
okay, see, I mean, so they're not lighting the lamp in putting up 30 plus every game, like type of situation where, because on paper their offense looks fantastic.
Right. Yeah. Actual raw numbers, yes. Scoring, no. They have an issue.
Pull up where their offensive line ranks in terms of protection and stuff like that. That's obviously another thing for the Patriots. They don't have elite pass rush by any means. But I would throw a bunch of different looks at Stroud, bait him into making some dangerous throws, but in a general sense, kind of say, hey, we're going to let you run the ball and hope that you can just match up, tackle well. And if you can do that, you give yourself a chance. Obviously we have no idea what to truly expect with Maye at quarterback and off, for the Patriots offensively. But we'll see on that end.
Let's see.
Bubs. I think Mayo finally found the right O-line combination to keep Maye safe. Perhaps. I mean, Verderian Lowe looked better. Onwenu kind of looked like shit this past game. So he needs to get his groove going. If he can get his groove going and Jacobs can just be serviceable, I know we love that word here, just serviceable. The O-line could be decent. And it's easier for a rookie quarterback to have pressure right in front of your face than it is coming from side to side when you're trying to look upfield. They can obviously get Maye outside the pocket too, a little bit more than Drake Maye, a little bit more than Jacoby Brissett.
So I couldn't find – there was one from the other day, but going into week 5, so not including their performance this past Sunday, the Texans had PFF's 16th ranked offensive line grade. So right in the middle of the pack.
All right, yeah. So they're in the middle of the pack. I mean, again, like you're not going to create.
They probably didn't move much, but yeah, somewhere in the middle of the pack.
Yeah, they're not going to create some type of huge pressure. They just don't have that type of talent. I think Uche is extremely limited. I think that Jennings is not really. It's just not really his specialty. Wise is decent. He's a decent edge guy. Kean White creates some pressure, but. As like you said, I would let them run the ball, and I would be aggressive blitz-wise. You don't want to throw the house and leave your guys stranded, obviously, but I would definitely throw all different looks at him and bait them into running the ball and just saying, hey, we're going to try to win a 20-17 game. And if we can do that, or, a 20-16 game. Maybe you keep them to a bunch of field goals. One touchdown, 3 field goals.
So PFF player grades, they have the 13th ranked center. But then if you look at guards and tackles, their highest ranked player is Laramie Tunsil, and he's the 41st ranked offensive tackle. Well, he's tied for 41st with Fuaga.
PFF obviously isn't gospel, but that they have average guard and tackle play and an elite center. That's it. Like, to put it in perspective, Mike Onwenu has a higher grade as a tackle than anybody on the Houston offensive line. Well, Tunsil's been
Mike Onwenu is the 30th ranked tackle according to PFF with a 68.5 grade.
Okay, all right, yeah. I mean, hey, if Lowe can play like he did this weekend, and I get, Miami's pass rush isn't what Houston's pass rush is, so I don't expect it to be to that level. But if he can play, and this is what was frustrating me, is down the stretch last year, over the last 5 or 6 games last year, Verderian Lowe played some solid football.
Yeah.
He wasn't spectacular. He was serviceable.
Yeah. If he was on the Texans, he'd be their 2nd ranked offensive tackle.
Yeah. So if if Lowe can just stay healthy and be serviceable left tackle, you might put yourself in a situation where maybe Maye isn't running, for his life, and put him in a terrible situation. For the Patriots, they need to throw a lot at Stroud, and if they want a chance to win, like I said, you gotta force the run. And if you don't force the run, if you let him sit back and try to pick you apart, with the talent that they have, you're going to see something similar to the Jets game, where they just kind of sit back, pick you apart, put up 25, 30 points, and you walk away and you lost, 30-13, something like that.
Now, and I hope I'm not stealing your thunder, but going into Sunday, what's your minimum outcome in terms of feeling confident that they've turned a corner, they've righted the ship, however you want to phrase it, and that you have confidence that they're going to be competitive moving forward?
Just move the ball.
Confidence?
Well, right, and again, right now, there's no confidence, right? I think it's safe to say there's no confidence that this team can be competitive on a day in, day out basis.
I would say flash plays. That's kind of what show life to the offense.
Yeah.
Even when the Patriots score.
If they show life and they lose 35-13.
Then yeah, in terms of confidence of the future, is that kind of what you're asking?
Well, okay. So you think, right? One of the not caveats, but one of the layers to this, the handing the reins over to Drake Maye, and we haven't peeled back all the layers yet. One of them being, you can't turn back. We've addressed this already. You can't go to Drake Maye if he looks bad and say, "Hey, sorry, we're pulling the plug." Brissett's the stuff. You can't do that. So one of the layers to this is, okay, what from the offense under Drake Maye indicates to you that. Because, at this point, percentage-wise, 1-4 doesn't bode well for the end of the season. Obviously, the Patriots team, they're not a playoff team, whatever. But, what would you have to see from the team to make you feel like we're going to get competitive games on every Sunday?
So, it's entirely possible, this weekend, the Patriots lose 35-13 because, Maye has some struggles. He's getting hit a lot. He makes a couple mistakes, maybe 2 picks, and the Texans capitalize. But there's still also a scenario within that, Drake Maye comes and he makes some really nice plays. Maybe they struggle in the red zone, and that's why they only put up 13 or 16 points, but they moved the ball decently, within the game as well. I want to see life to the offense.
So to you, it's more the eye test than the scoreboard.
Oh, definitely. Because we kind of expect mistakes. No one's expecting Maye to come out and not throw any interceptions, not make any mistakes. Right. He could come out and throw 2 picks on Sunday, but if he also comes out and looks comfortable overall, making some really nice throws and making some good decisions, show life to the offense to say, hey, this is what the offense can be, then, that will give us as fans a little bit of a positive viewpoint of what this team can obviously be.
Okay.
That's kind of my answer, is just show life to the offense.
Yeah. I say show life, but also establish a connection with somebody. If it doesn't matter if it's Polk, Demario Douglas, but show that you're starting to form a connection with one of your receivers, whether it's Hunter Henry, whoever. If it's third and gotta have it, you're going back to him over the course of the game, and you're kind of establishing that that 1-2 punch. Because moving forward, or I guess right now in the past couple of years, there's been no one that Mac Jones would look to. There's been no one that Brissett can even get it out to. So if you can establish a connection, or at least look as if you're forming one, that'll give me a lot of confidence moving forward. Like I said, if we can get some flash plays, or if we can get a 3rd down and 10, and you go, a 12-yard out to a Polk, for example, okay, now we're starting to get somewhere and we're starting to put the building blocks in place. But if it's another, and again, he's going to, like Matt says, he's going to turn the ball over a couple times, I'm assuming, just because of, he's his first game in NFL action in a real game. But flash plays beginning to get a connection to me is much more important than what the scoreboard shows, because the running games right now is fine. It's more of the quarterback play and more of the passing game that's just not existent right now. And if we can get that, then I think it'll give me at least a much better, much more faith going forward.
All right. I would agree with you guys. It's way more eye test than it is scoreboard. Obviously, competitive on the scoreboard matters. But if there's life to the offense and it's just, there's growing pains because you have a new guy running the show, and they lose, 28-13, 28-16, but at least it's competitive, and you just got beat because the other team is simply better than you. But again, for me, same thing. Eye test over scoreboard.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, let's finish this up. We'll do 5-10 minutes of some Bruins talk. They start tonight, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Tonight? Yeah.
At Florida.
Jeremy Swayman signed his extension finally, 8 years, $8.25 million per year. I just wanted to kind of get you guys' overall thoughts on the whole contract situation, but I know you and I kind of talked off the record on it. But where are you feeling of how things played out? Who do you think won in the end between Swayman and the Bruins, and how you feeling about the whole situation?
I think it was I don't know if it was a clear winner. I think it was a fine contract. I've heard people say that it was way too high for someone like him, and 130 whatever he has games. It was the market, right? It was kind of the market price. Shesterkin from the Rangers just turned down, they said 8 years, $88 million, which if that was the contract, I'd be sitting here screaming what is Sweeney doing? But I thought the contract was fair. I didn't have an issue with the years or the length the years or the AAV. I think if it was up to Swayman, this would have been done a long time ago. I think he was starting to show signs of, I said this last week, but he was starting to show signs of just kind of fatigue with the whole thing. And I think a lot of people thought that was from the Bruins side. He was fed up with dealing with Don Sweeney. I think it was much more on the agent side. There was a report that came out, I think it was last week before we recorded last week, I think he has the same agent as William Nylander from, I think he's in Toronto. And he hated his agent's handling of the contract situation. He signed like $11 million, but he said he hated the way it was handled. Similar things kind of came up with Swayman. So I think Swayman was kind of over it and wanted to get it done. I think he was happy to be back and just wanted to be paid fairly. So I didn't have an issue with it. I thought it was market price for what a goalie of his caliber is. Yes, he's young, but that's just where it is. Happy it's done. Happy it got done before the season started, and there's really no issues with playing time, things like that.
Ben?
Yeah, I think Swayman certainly won in the end. Say what you want about what the talking heads said about the negotiation process. It's obviously a pretty high contract for a guy who's still a restricted free agent. I think that there's certainly blame to kind of go around, kind of everywhere. Agent, I think Swayman was, and granted, Swayman's also acting at the behest of his agent and vice versa. I think Swayman basically, his starting point of being I want $10 million a year was kind of a brutal spot to put the Bruins in. I think they lowballed him too, but I'm glad it's over. Zach hits the nail on the head with that one. I don't know if he'll start tonight. Korpisalo was the first player out for pregame skate for goalies. Obviously, that's just more of Swayman's not in physical game shape yet. He hasn't been practicing. He didn't play in the preseason. That's more of a sign of that than anything. Although they did come out and say that it was a game time decision over who was going to start in net, which is pretty good. But again, Korpisalo was the first guy out on the ice for pregame for morning skate. I'll have to look at the details. There was a report, so I tuned in to 98.5 a little after 4 o'clock because I wanted to get their take on the Drake May news. And when I tuned in, they were at the tail end of a segment about Jeremy Swayman. So I'll kind of default to you guys, see if you guys heard this too. But 98.5 was talking about how apparently not all 8.25 per year is guaranteed. That it's kind of like they likened it to like a Bill Belichick free agent signing, where there's apparently like playing time and playoff incentives built into his contract that like of the 8.25 million, 2 million of it hinges on them making the playoffs, and that he has to play a certain percentage of the games in order to get this like $500,000 bonus. So I haven't dug into the contract personally. I don't know if you guys have seen this, but supposedly the 8.25 is not fully guaranteed on a year-to-year basis, that there's some incentives built in. I'm fine with the actual dollar amount, even if it was fully guaranteed. Yeah, it's pretty high for a restricted free agent, but he's a guy that you would expect to be a perennial Vezina Trophy contestant, a guy who you can put in net, 60%, 67, 2/3 of the games every year, if you needed to. I think he can be a legitimate number one goalie. He's only 25. So certainly plenty of time for growth and to become the guy that you're paying him to be. But again, like I'm glad it's over. That they came to some kind of middle ground, and hopefully if he doesn't play tonight, hopefully it's just the one game that he's ready to go for game 2 and the rest of the season.
Yeah, I didn't see much about the details of the deal, to be honest with you, but I do think that Swayman won. Ultimately, I think that Swayman and his agent kind of said, "Hey, we want 10 million," knowing that they were never going to get 10 million. I think the Bruins were saying, "Hey, we're not going over like 7 a year," and ultimately, what happened was Swayman and his agent just waited it out and waited it out and waited it out, and ultimately the Bruins caved and came up to a point where it was doable for Swayman. I think if they offered Swayman 8 years, 66 million 2 months ago, he probably accepts it.
Yeah, I would agree.
And so, I think it was just the Bruins kind of panicking, and not that I think the deal is terrible. It's not. I think it's a relatively fair deal. We've talked about it on here that I thought around 8 million a year was in the ballpark. It's less percentage of the cap than what Tuukka got when he signed his long-term big extension here with the Bruins many years ago. I want to say Tuukka took up like 11.5% of the cap, and Swayman's around 9%. So
in 9.38.
Yeah, so big, structure-wise, it's a little bit better on the team than what even Tuukka's was. I'm not too worried about the fact that he hasn't played a ton of, being the full-time starter. It's not something I'm very worried about. But I'm happy he's under contract. I think the deal as a whole was fine. I'm happy that he's here. I think he's a really good player, good teammate, good locker room guy. And Zach, you obviously gave some bold predictions for the Bruins this year, but I expect that they will be a pretty good hockey team. They needed a number one center. They went out and got Lindholm. They added on defense as well. I think as a whole that they should be a good competitive hockey team. And if what's his face? Who's the backup goalie now? Begins with a B, right? I'm having a mind blank of what is.
Well, I mean, he won't be the backup. It'll be Korpisalo now.
Who am I thinking? Oh no. Yeah,
they went out and signed somebody like off the street last week, which some people were like, "Oh, is that an ominous sign for Swayman?" But obviously it wasn't. But yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's just an emergency in case a deal didn't get done. But yeah, you're right. No, he's he obviously has starting experience from in Ottawa, I believe it was, right? Yeah. Ottawa.
They traded him.
And so he wasn't that good last year, but it's good to have starting experience from a backup at least. So I think that they're going to try to play Swayman. I think he played how many games? Like 43 last year or something like that.
Yeah, they split it like pretty much 50-50.
Yeah, so I would imagine that they get Swayman closer to like 55 this year.
Yeah.
And so you probably expand him to like that. If you could get a good 25 to 30 games from the backup, that they'll be in pretty good shape if he could play some solid hockey. The team as a whole should be pretty good, and I'm kind of excited to kind of watch them. I think that they were good last year. Obviously, they were outmatched by Florida when it came to the playoffs, but their team's better than they were last year. We'll see if the goaltending holds up to the same degree, but roster-wise, they're better than last year.
Yeah, last year Swayman was 25, 10, and 8, which is 43 games for those who don't feel like doing math. 253 goals against average, which was 8th best in the league. 916 save percentage, which was top 5 in the league.
Yeah.
So pretty elite numbers. So
we'll see if it really just comes down to if he can do this over 55 to 60 games.
Yeah,
like that,
so
and then will he withstand in the playoffs?
Yeah, and if you include the playoffs, so he started 55 games. I guess he got into a game at some point because he played 44, but only started 43 last year. So if you include the playoffs, he went 31, 16, and 8. That includes 12 games in the playoffs. And in the playoffs, he had 25 goals against in 12 games, which is a 215 goals against average. And his save percentage was 933. His ice time was basically the same. It was 58-18 in the regular season and 58-07 in the postseason. But he had better goals against average and better save percentages in the postseason. I don't know what that averages out to over the course of the full season because they break it out into regular season and postseason from what I'm looking at. But
yeah,
he had
no. I mean, he was good in the playoffs last year. He was
very good. Like I mean, dare I say? I mean, if you. I would say a 215 goals against and a 933 save percentage. That's damn near elite. Especially
he
was. The issue in the playoffs wasn't the goaltending; it was we just got outmanaged.
Yeah, they were just
we were out toughed.
Florida was just a better team last year.
Yeah,
and
they won it all.
They added some good pieces. We'll see how it plays out. Obviously, we don't do a ton of Bruins talk here, but they're looking like they'll be a competitive team, and unlike the Patriots, they actually have a chance to win the championship. But hey, that's what we'll wrap it up. You boys got your takes for the week. You guys ready for that?
Sure am.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Benny Ball Games got his locked in. Go ahead, start us off then.
So inspired by the breaking news, no breaking news music on the on Raise the Banner quite yet.
No.
This is not the top 10 web gems on ESPN.
Sports Center top 10.
Although we gotta get legal. We gotta get legal on the phone. Hopefully that wasn't a copyright infringement. So I'm gonna say Drake Maye goes for at least 225 yards and 2 total touchdowns against the Houston Texans. I think
emphasizing the total. Okay.
Yeah, I'll go 2 total. I think maybe that's a little bit of a Weasley way out of it to say that he can
run. No, he ran for one in the preseason.
Yeah,
so it's
but I think 2 total touchdowns. And I'll say 225 through the air. I don't know, probably I think assuming he's going to run a little bit, he'll probably approach 250 total. But I think that your short-term reaction, because Matt and I talked about this a couple hours ago about like what was better for the Pats if Drake Maye, at least in the short term, is it worse if Drake Maye sucks or if he goes absolutely bonkers and balls out? So I think your short-term reaction in a good game is that, well, why hasn't he been starting all season? But competitive game. They're 7-point dogs, which seems like a lot considering the Houston Texans don't score a ton of points and it's not like the Pats defense is terrible. But I think, they cover. It's a competitive game, and, Drake Maye goes for, I'll say 240 total yards and 2 touchdowns.
That gives them a chance to win. So, I mean, assuming that doesn't also include 3 picks.
No, I'll say 1 turnover.
Okay. All right. I like it. Zach, how about you?
I got a similar one. I was kind of debating on 2 here, but I'll go with to kind of ride Ben's coattails with that one. I think with the switch to Drake Maye, they have the highest scoring day of the year. The Pats do not really.
What's the current high?
it's 20 points, so it isn't really a huge.
Okay, all right.
It isn't really a huge
21
bar to reach there. But yeah, I think it's going to be a jolt of energy that this team needs. Like I've said before, I think the biggest issue of the team has been the quarterback. The O-line sucks, but I think it's been the quarterback for the most part. I think the receivers are fine. I'll go I don't have a prediction for you, but over 20 points, at least 21 points. I don't predict a win, so don't get ahead of yourself. But that's what I'm going. Is the Pats have the highest scoring day of the season here with Drake Maye at the helm.
All right. I mean, again, I'll keep it with Drake Maye. I was going to do something else, but you know what? I'll just make it 3-for, and I'll go a little bit more simplified.
Like the offense.
The Patriots, Drake Maye will have 2 passing plays of over 30 yards this weekend.
All right.
Something that I don't think the Patriots have all year.
Has Jacoby Brissett attempted a pass that traveled more than 30 yards?
It might not go 30 yards in the air.
I think he had that one play to Jalen Polk that was called back.
The Hunter Henry one was 30 yards, I think.
Oh, Hunter Henry had one too, yeah.
The one at the very end there. But okay, other than a Hail Mary needing to throw the ball, I think they'll have we may see some mistakes from Maye, but I think we're going to have a couple big, exciting plays. One to Jalen Polk and the other to Demario Douglas, where, I don't know, we could be optimistic and say maybe he hits Douglas on a crosser and Douglas takes it to the house. He's electric, dude. Douglas is electric on the field. So that's another thing we talked about, like what we could expect from Douglas this year. The more comfort that Maye gets, like I think we could see Douglas kind of turn into a really good football player for this team, assuming he can stay healthy.
I'm high on Polk. I liked your option of that deep ball to Polk. The other one I was debating on is him having 75 yards and a touchdown today, or Sunday. I won't.
Yeah, I was gonna go completely different sport. So I guess
yeah.
Polk fits there.
Bonus official state your take, but
bonus state your take. Drake Maye becomes the fastest white quarterback in the NFL.
Wasn't he like the fastest? Didn't he get marked as like the fastest guy in the preseason or something for the Patriots? I want to say he had a run during the preseason. He got marked like going fucking. He was booming. He can move.
Vanilla Vic, though,
he's significantly underrated.
If Jacoby is the slowest black quarterback in the NFL, Drake Maye will become the fastest white quarterback in the NFL.
He might. Josh Allen might have that, but I don't know.
Breaking down barriers over here.
Drake might be a little bit quicker. I don't know. Maybe not as fast, straight line speed, but a little bit quicker. But all right, that's going to wrap us up for this week. We actually had a long pod this week. Excited to see Drake Maye ball out this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
I'm I'll get home in time. I got a wedding this weekend. Needless to say, I will be waking up and driving the 2.5 hours home first thing in the morning because I'm not missing Patriots football and Drake Maye's debut. But any final thoughts? Go Pats! Anything?
Go Pats!
Yeah, go Pats! We're getting into the exciting part where we have to cover 3 different sports at the same time. And maybe one year we'll cover all 4 if the Sox get good and make a deep run into the playoffs. We'll be covering 4 teams at one time.
Dude, fall's the best time of the year.
God help us. But yeah, we got the Bees. Celtics open up in what, 2 weeks?
Yeah, it's usually the end of October.
It's usually like mid to end of October.
They just played some preseason games in Abu Dhabi or whatever it's called.
Yeah,
Abu Dhabi down against Denver. They went 2-0. They did go 2-0.
They did.
But all right, that's going to finish us up for this week. Go Pats, go Drake Maye. Hopefully we don't not back next week saying, holy shit, that was not pretty. Hopefully we're coming back with a little bit of excitement like we did today. And, May Day will be happening every Sunday. Well, I guess occasionally Thursdays and Mondays, but every Sunday for the next 15 years in the fall.
One game at a time.
Yeah. State your take. The next 15 years, it's going to be May Day. All right, boys. Until next week, Thanks for listening.
See you guys.
See you later.